Welcome. I don't know if anyone's here. I'll find out right now. But happy President's Day, everybody. I'm here. Let's see. Does it even? Oh, I am live. Okay, cool. Happy President's Day, and I hope everybody is having a good President's Day. I hope you are enjoying your time off if you have it, or working if that's what you have to do. We all have to do what we don't like sometimes. Now. I titled this episode, Despair is a Mind Virus, because I do believe that it is. And I have a personal story that I'd like to share with people, that where I came from and how I've achieved some level of success at the moment. But first, I wanted to play this quote from Dan Pena. Actually, it's really from Carnegie, but I think it's a valid quote that I think people should hear. Oh, and by the way, that was music from Johnny Selbrede, JONNYSEL. BREDE. Very funny guy that I actually usually quote his jokes on social media because I find him hilarious. And he's not a comedian. He's a musician that just makes awesome music. And I believe in sharing people's music that I enjoy, that I think are just cool people. But anyway, let me play this quote really quick. It's only be very short.
Andrew Carnegie, arguably the richest, most successful entrepreneur of all time. He said the best thing that you can have for a child is him to be born into poverty. And I agree.
And I also agree with that because I was born into poverty. Hello, everybody. Hey, what's going on? I was born into poverty myself. When I was born addicted to heroin. And I talk about this on stage. I have jokes about it, but it is real. And people always ask me, is it real that you were born addicted to heroin? And I said, absolutely. I was 1 pound, 7 ounces. I was premature as a child. And I do remember what it was like growing up. My mother was, we lived all over the place. We never had a home. I never had possessions, really, because usually you'd have to abandon them in the middle of the night because we'd be kicked out of it. If we had an apartment, we'd be kicked out very fast. Because, you know, when you have a mom that's on heroin, she doesn't like paying rent, Heroin's number one. And I always found it very interesting that, thank you all for joining, everybody. But I always found it very interesting when people say, oh, I came from a tough background. And I go, good. That is probably the best thing that could happen to you because it gives you motivation. It gives you drive. It gives you fire, right? As I like to say, take that chip on your shoulder and turn it into and put it in your furnace. Don't let it eat you alive. Use it as motivation because you actually have more advantages from coming from a tougher background than other people that didn't. If you've ever talked to rich people that came from money, they are the most boring people in the world, right? And they usually don't achieve too much and they end up losing their parents' money, right? So don't be that person, right? Have that fire, have that drive. And so that is what I've had as long as I can have it because I believe I did come from poverty. I remember begging on the streets with my mom for money just to get food every day. And we lived in a car. That was a really rough time. But actually what's funny is as a kid, it didn't seem abnormal because that's all I knew. I thought everybody didn't have a home, or that everybody just stayed in motels or everyone watched their mom shoot heroin every day, she quit she did die when I was 9 because of the heroin, but she did end up quitting in the last year of my life and finally got things together. So I will say that that was a good thing, right? But I see a lot of people constantly try and spread despair that things will never get better. And to them, I usually want to say,
shut up and sit down!
Because you're not helping anything, and you're also not helping not only yourself, but you're also hurting your friends. And I don't like friends like that around because I am a motivated person. In fact, I am on the 15th day straight of work. I haven't had really much of a break. I've been editing a lot. And yes, I don't see my family as much as I should, but right now I'm trying to buy a house. I don't know if I'll get there anytime soon, but I want to be proud of my accomplishments. Coming from literally nothing, if I could get a home, that would be an ultimate goal for me. And so I believe when people try and spread that message that things are not possible, I do have that. Not only did I come from nothing, but I had no connections in this business. Now, my boss, where I work now, which he happens to represent the number 6th highest paid comic of all time so far. he's been number 6 for a long time, below Kevin Hart and all those other guys. My boss started the company that I'm at now out of his garage in Bakersfield. Now, he did that, and he didn't let other people say, "Oh, you can't make it in this business. It's not going to happen." He sacrificed, and he worked very hard for a very long time, and now he's a literal millionaire, right? And I don't, when I look at people that are successful, I do not look at them, and I do not get jealous. Luckily, that is something I am proud to have never had, because I've had some very successful friends throughout my life. I have a friend that owns his own trucking company and does very well for himself. And I never went, "Oh man, how come I don't have that?" What I always say is, what can I do to achieve something similar? That is a better approach to life, is instead of being jealous of what others have, try and figure out, like a puzzle, how you can get that too. And I believe it is possible for people, and you have to work hard. There is no shortcut to anything. Let me explain how I got the job I have now. I used to edit. I went to film school, right? Luckily I had a good family that took me in and helped me along the way. I think that prevented me from spiraling into a negative path, because when you come from where I come from, sometimes those kids end up very damaged. And I'm happy that the family that I do have are nothing but good people not nothing, but I'm sure there's terrible people in there. But there are very good people that do love me, and they've helped me along the way, even through my many mistakes, because I make mistakes. Another thing is, don't be afraid of mistakes. I've made so many, and it's actually, I look at every mistake as a learning opportunity. I don't look at it like I failed. I think that what I'm trying to get at is the best way to be is to change your mind perspective, and not look at the negatives as nothing but negative. They can be negative. Don't get me wrong. I'm not an optimist. I'm a realist. But you look at the negative and say, what can I learn from that? So the way I got the job I have now is kind of an interesting story. I went to film school. I was doing stand-up comedy at the exact same time, so I would always perform as much as I could. I went up pretty much 5, 6, 7 times a week, and or usually sometimes a lot more. And I would perform in terrible places. I met a comic that would become my roommate, and at the same time I went to film school, not sleeping. I'd work jobs I absolutely hated and did not want to be there, but I did it anyway because, as my friend who became my roommate told me, practice like you play. Yes, that job sucks. Yes, it's not what you want to do, but if you don't put effort into something, even something you hate, how will you put that same energy into something you absolutely love? So from that, I just started editing videos and creating videos because I had a camera, and it wasn't the best camera, but I made little documentary comedy shorts with that roommate. Now, I didn't know at the time, but he was writing for, at first, Girlfriends, and then eventually Everybody Hates Chris. So one day, he came to me with a bunch of footage and said, "Hey, can you edit this?" Didn't tell me what it was, and it was Chris Rock in London. And I edited that little clip to the best of my ability, right? And I was so excited because I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And I did that for several months, working on different clips with him. We got notes. I learned how to understand the notes process of editing. Before that, I would just kind of create things on my own and just be like, oh, I don't know if this is any good, you know? And so from that, from just working for free for my roommate, I got something on my reel that I could show people that I'm not just some kid off the street, which I kind of was, you know, but I actually had skills. And it wasn't because I went, oh man, no one, you know, I'm not getting enough money for this. I'm still having to work at a coffee shop while I edit for Chris Rock. This is bullshit. Instead, I went, no, this is an opportunity. And from that, years later, many years later, I got another opportunity to work with Jim Jeffries and Eddie Ift on their podcast. And that was the thing that changed my life. I didn't know it at the time, but it would change my life forever. So even though all the time I'm doing these things, I'm working jobs I absolutely hate. I despise them. I didn't want to be there, but I did it anyway. I even worked at a casino while I was doing some of these things, and that was a difficult life. But I never gambled before in my life, never played cards, didn't even know how. I became a dealer at a casino, didn't know what I was doing, but from the sheer will, I figured it out and learned how to become. I went from one of the worst students because it was this weird opportunity where it was a Hollywood Park casino where they were offering people that had never dealt cards before the chance to learn and become a dealer. And I was like, oh, let me take that opportunity. I got that actually from a friend. And what I did with that opportunity was I became proficient, not the best, but proficient enough to get the job. And I was able to slightly pull myself up from poverty with that job. Before that, I was barely getting by, and I was struggling every day. And but I've always been an amazing reader, so I researched and did my due diligence to become good at that job. Didn't like the job, but I still became good at it. And then luckily, because of my brother, I got another opportunity to work on Nitro Circus. And that lasted for several months, and I made the most money I've ever made in my life. It was like, I was like, wow, this is like, screw you money almost, I've become middle class. And all that came from just taking opportunities when they arose and not being afraid of anything. And that's why I say, despair is the mind killer, because this whole time I could have just went, oh man, nothing will ever work out. I have no connections. But instead, I worked hard to get what I wanted in life. And that job went away. And again, this is the moment where I did fall into despair. That's why I know despair is evil. I fell into despair. I was trying to make it as a sound guy, but I researched and learned how to do it, and learned how to do other skills besides editing that I didn't have production-wise, and worked on a couple of films, but I was going broke. My savings were about to run low. And just as things seemed at their worst, I got a DUI, I hit a wall, my car caught fire, I almost died that very night, and basically didn't even care if it had happened, but I really did. At the moment, I thought I was going to be a loser, and I thought I was going to be kicked out of my place and become homeless again, which is my number one fear, which is why I work a lot. What I did was I just edited things randomly, put them online, and the comic Eddie Ift, who I had kept in touch with, was like, wow, you're a really good editor. There's an opening at my management company. Would you like to become an editor over there? And I was like, absolutely. And now I'm here. And through all the ups and downs, that's why you can never be jealous of what other people have, because you don't know what they had to do to get there, or the struggles that they had to endure. And in fact, that's why I say, don't be embarrassed of coming from nothing. It probably makes you more motivated than supposedly people that came from stuff. Yes, they have opportunities, but they don't have the fire that you can have, as long as you have a strong work ethic and a strong will to achieve something. So that's my President's Day motivation. I hope everybody has a wonderful President's Day. I was gonna keep this relatively short. It went a little longer than I expected, but I hope everybody has a wonderful day, and thank you so much for watching.